Hey guys, I'm going to be sharing with you my to be read pile for October and November 2023. So let's get going with the books I plan on reading for the next 2 months. This TBR, you guys, is going to be very, very small. I'm only going to be able to squeeze out 4 books, unfortunately. Normally, I can squeeze out anywhere from about 6 to 8, maybe even 10 books, depending on the length. But yeah, these next 2 months, I have 2 books that are just absolute beasts of books. I'll get into it as I go here. But yeah, I only have 4 books I'm going to be sharing with you guys for this TBR. As for the previous TBR for August, September, that went down very, very well. Definitely some hits and misses in there, but for the most part, very successful TBR for August, September. And yeah, all of those books that I did read, I do have reviews up on my Goodreads channel if you want to check out my Goodreads reviews. And then yeah, as far as video reviews for those books will eventually arrive months and months after the fact, but they will get there eventually. So something I plan on reading sometime in the next 2 months is this book right here, and that is The Late Mrs Willoughby by Claudia Gray. And this is book 2 in the Mr. Darcy and Miss Tilney mystery series. I'm so glad this is a series, you guys. I read the first book in this series, The Murder of Mr. Wickham, and I left that book thinking, oh, I really hope Claudia Gray turns this into like a little murder mystery series, you know, featuring Jane Austen's characters. And yeah, speaking of that, if you don't know what this series is about thus far, Claudia Gray is taking all your favorite classic Jane Austen characters and kind of like just mashing them all up and whatnot and throwing them all into like a murder mystery. And your primary characters in this series so far, you have Jonathan, right? Jonathan Darcy. He is the son of Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. And then you have Miss Tilney. Juliet, is her name Juliet? I'm trying to remember. Let me look real quick. Yes, Juliet. Juliet Tilney, who is the daughter of 2 characters from Northanger Abbey, I believe. Catherine and Henry from Northanger Abbey. So you have those 2 characters, the son and daughter of characters from other, you know, Jane Austen books and whatnot. So yeah, I'm going to read you the plot synopsis of this really quickly, yeah guys. It says, following the events of the murder of Mr. Wickham, Elizabeth and Fitzwilliam Darcy of Pemberley are thrilled that their eldest son Jonathan has been invited to stay with a former schoolmate. Jonathan, however, is decidedly less taken with the notion of having to spend extended time under the roof of his old bully, John Willoughby. Yet all seems worthwhile once he finds himself back in the company of his fellow amateur sleuth, the radiant Miss Juliet Tilney. Catherine and Henry Tilney of Northanger Abbey are not entirely pleased to be sending their eligible young daughter out into the world again, particularly concerning. Juliet is visiting her new friend, Marian Brandon from Sensibility, you guys, who has returned home to Devonshire shrouded in fresh scandal, with the tangled history between Marianne and Willoughby threatening more. Then Willoughby's new wife, whom he married only for her fortune, dies horribly from poison at the party meant to welcome her to town. With rumors flying, Jonathan and Juliet must team up once more to uncover the murderer, but eerie incidents suggest that the killer may strike again, and that the pair are in far greater danger than they or their families could imagine. Yes. So yeah, if you can't kind of tell, these books are taking place like after the events of all of the Jane Austen books. You know, like all the couples have their happy ever afters, or not so much. So yeah, this one is definitely going to be focusing on Willoughby's wife, who he married at the very end of Sense and Sensibility. Correct? Yes. And yeah, she winds up dead from poison. It sounds like it's not a spoiler. I mean, the title of this should give it away. The Late Mrs Willoughby. So I can't wait to get to this second book. I really enjoyed the first book. It was so fun, and I liked kind of the mashup of all the characters in, you know, all your favorite characters from Jane Austen just all together colliding. Really wonderful. Next up, I could not leave this year without getting around to the next Ruth Ware book, you guys. It seems like she writes a book every single year somehow, and it's like I gotta try to always squeeze them out because I always want to be caught up. So yeah, I'm going to get around to the latest Ruth Ware book that was released this year, and that is 0 Days. And this one is about, let's see, oh, this cover is like so shiny, you guys. Okay. Jacinta Jack Cross and her husband Gabe are the best security penetration specialists in the business. Hired by companies to test the strengths and weaknesses of their systems, Jack handles the physical break-ins while Gabe tackles the digital aspects. They make an excellent team outside of work too, but after a routine assignment goes horribly wrong, Jack arrives home to find her husband dead. Dear God. To add to her horror, the police are closing in on their only suspect, her. Uh-oh. Suddenly on the run and quickly running out of options, Jack must decide who she can trust as she digs further into family, old friends, and even old enemies. As she circles closer to the truth, she also begins to question if there could be far more at stake in this unputdownable and heart-pounding mystery from an author whose propulsive prose keeps readers on the hook and refuses to let anyone off until all has been revealed. Ooh, yes. I definitely can't wait to get to this. I'm hoping I really like this one. Some of her books have been hit or miss for me, but for the most part, I have absolutely enjoyed every single one. So yeah, don't let me down, Ruth Ware. So I'm going to be heading into the two massive books that I plan on getting around to for this TBR. First up, Edge of Eternity by Ken Follett, and this is book 3 in the Century trilogy. And this book, you guys, wait until you hear the page count on this one. It reaches right at 1,100 pages. 1,100 pages. You guys, this is literally going to take me like one whole month to finish. And I'm a little terrified. That's why I'm only reading 4 books for this TBR, because that's all the room I have for. I'm going to go ahead and read the plot synopsis of this book, because the way this trilogy is, you're not really going to get spoiled about anything particularly, but what you do need to know in general about this trilogy, it takes place over the entirety of a century, that being the 1900s, and it follows a group of families, various different families, like a Welsh family, Russian family, American family, you know, a bunch of families like that, and how all these families, how their lives interconnect and weave together, and how they're all coping with kind of the highs and lows of this particular century. The first book started with the events of World War I. Book 2 dealt with the events of World War II. So yeah, this book is going to be getting, I'm guessing, kind of into like the Cold War, which I'm pretty thrilled about. Okay, so let's see. Edge of Eternity, the finale, covers one of the most tumultuous eras of all, the 1960s through the 1980s, encompassing civil rights, assassinations, Vietnam, the Berlin Wall, the Cuban Missile Crisis, presidential impeachment, revolution, and rock and roll. East German teacher Rebecca Hoffman discovers she's been spied on by the Stacie for years and commits an impulsive act that will affect her family for generations. George Jakes, himself biracial, bypasses corporate law to join Robert F. Kennedy's Justice Department and finds himself in the middle of not only the seminal events of the Civil Rights battle, but also a much more personal battle. Cameron DeWar, the grandson of a senator, jumps at the chance to do some espionage for a cause he believes in, only to discover that the world is much more dangerous than he'd imagined. Dimka Dvorkin, a young aide to Khrushchev, becomes an agent for good and for ill as the Soviet Union and the United States race to the brink of nuclear war, while his twin sister Tanya carves out a role that will take her from Moscow to Cuba to Prague to Warsaw and into history. So yeah, you get the gist. This book is going to be covering a lot. So like it was saying, the 1960s through the 1980s. Dear God, what about the 1990s? I feel like this book is just skipping right over the 1990s. It's part of the same century. And the last big, gigantic book I'm going to be tackling in this TBR is the next Strike book by Robert Galbraith, aka J.K. Rowling, unfortunately. This is The Ink Black Heart, and this is another beast of a book, you guys, dear God. And this one's like at 1,000 pages as well. Let me double check. Yep, this is like sitting at 1,000 pages. So that's 2 books that are 1,000 pages. and I'm a little deathly terrified about it, but I'll make it work. So yeah, what is this particular book in the Strike series about? Once again, I'm going to go ahead and read the plot synopsis of this because you don't have to read these books in order at all. I don't necessarily think you're not really missing out on anything. It's really just your main characters that their plots kind of matter book to book, but yeah, the murder mystery is always different, so yeah, there's nothing to spoil. Let's see. When frantic, disheveled Eddie Ledwell appears in the office begging to speak to her, private detective Robin Ellicott doesn't know quite what to make of the situation. The co-creator of a popular cartoon, The Ink Black Heart, Eddie is being persecuted by a mysterious online figure who goes by the pseudonym of Anami. Eddie is desperate to uncover Anami's true identity. Robin decides that the agency can't help with this and thinks nothing more of it until a few days later when she reads the shocking news that Eddie has been tasered and then murdered in Highgate Cemetery, the location of Ink Black Heart. Robin and her business partner, Cormoran Strike, become drawn into the quest to uncover Anami's true identity, but with a complex web of online aliases, business interests, and family conflicts to navigate, Strike and Robin find themselves embroiled in a case that stretches their powers of deduction to the limits, and that threatens them in new and horrifying ways. Yes, I'm super excited for this next book, yeah, guys. And this book has not been adapted as part of the television series yet. The television series has made it all the way through to the 5th book, this being the 6th book and whatnot. So yeah, I have no idea what to expect with this book. I'm kind of thrilled and excited about that because I have no idea who the murderer is going to be. I have no idea what to expect. I've not been spoiled by the TV show. So that's pretty cool. So you guys, that is it for my TBR for the next 2 months. In the comments below, have you guys read any of these books? Do you plan on reading any of them? What do you plan on reading for the next month or two? Just let me know. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.